Welcome, everyone. You found Sanctuary's Coffee and Conversation Show. I'm Myrna Haskell, Executive Editor of Sanctuary Magazine. This is an online publication for women with a focus on the arts, philanthropy, health and wellness, culture, and community. You can find us at sanctuary-magazine.com. I'm excited to announce Claudia Bloom because I think many of you may have seen her in our B2B video that we had in Community Compass earlier in the year. But Claudia is the founder and owner of Rock Locations. She is a location representative for home and business owners in the greater New York City and New Jersey area. And it was her creative passion and her absolute love for her community that inspired her to launch Rock Locations. And we're going to learn a lot more about that in a few minutes. But welcome, Claudia. It's great to have you on the show today.
Thank you. It's great to be here, and I love your intro.
Thank you. So anyway, our topic today is reinventing yourself in business. And I can tell you, Claudia, that probably 80 to 85% of our community is going through this because we have a sweet spot of women in midlife who perhaps have been very, very successful in their careers for 30 plus years or more who are saying, you know what, been there, done that, but I'm dying to do this. But maybe they're a little afraid, so we can get into that a little bit more. I wanted to start out by you talking about your backstory, how you got from point A to point B, and maybe just a little bit more about the inspiration behind launching Rock.
Perfect. That's a great way to start. Thanks, Myrna. And people, I get that question all the time. How did you do this? How did you launch it? It's such sort of a random sort of business. So my background is all in media and entertainment. I was an actor, mostly in LA on TV and commercials. And then I moved into becoming a casting director. I assisted on feature films and some theater. I moved back to New York for personal reasons. I was in LA and then came home to New York. I launched a small coaching business to coach actors. It was just a little kind of a side hustle. And I just decided I really needed a job. All those things were sort of very freelance-y, and I was raising a family at the time, just starting our family. So I became a magazine editor, a research editor, a fact checker. We need fact checkers, especially today. And I learned a whole new world I knew nothing about. I mean, I had a good college degree. I knew how to do research. And I fell into this industry. One magazine led to another, freelance, and then I landed at a very good, important women's magazine that's still alive today. A lot of magazines are not alive.
You don't know how good that makes me feel because I had the same experience. Yeah, exactly. A lot of them went under, unfortunately.
This one hasn't gone under, but it's, it's small. It's called Real Simple. So a lot of your readers may know it, and I was there for a long time. My number came up. Many of us were laid off. The business was changing. The business was going digital. They were just slashing. I was let go. I got a monthly small job at another big women's magazine called Martha Stewart Living.
Of course, everyone knows that one.
Right, which is now folded, but I was there for 7 years as a freelancer. And during that time, I was really sort of going through life changes. Like, what am I doing now? I don't have a full-time job. I'm sort of relieved I didn't have a full-time job after all those years. My son was at college. My rent was going up. I knew something had to change, and I decided to move. I was in Manhattan, which is one of the boroughs in New York City, for most of my adult life. I moved to the Queens, another borough, in a beach town called the Rockaways. It's kind of near JFK. Some of your listeners may be familiar with the JFK airport. I had been coming out to the beach for 3 summers every single weekend. From May to October, I'd pack a bag, and I was out here. I just needed to get out of the city. I'm
a happy place.
Very happy place. I discovered surfing at the same time. I started to take surf lessons, meeting surfers. It all became a great fun experience, but I didn't really know where I was going to move to. And most of my friends had just moved to the Rockaways. You're always there. And I said, oh, no one lives there full time. No, that's just a beach town. Well, I was very wrong. I started to look at rents in the other boroughs. I was really outpriced. Now I'm not even working full time. And I said, where am I going to go? I looked at rents here in Rockaway and I was like, I think it's a no-brainer. Wait, I could be at the beach, at the ocean surf, and pay half, basically half. Wow. So I ended up here in the Rockaways in a beautiful home. I have an ocean view, full ocean view, but I'm living in New York City, so I can get into the city really quickly as well. My son can get here also from the city. had about a 6-month window financially of like, okay, 2 weeks for Martha, 2 weeks a month. What else am I doing? How else am I going to pay my rent?
Yeah.
I wanted to use my skills. I wanted something in media or entertainment. I wanted to bring something back to the community. I didn't just want to sit online at home, do some online job. I didn't want to commute anymore into Manhattan. It's about an hour and a half each way for me. I didn't really know. I mean, I have to say I was struggling. So I looked into a theater company that's out here. Maybe I would coach actors. There wasn't enough interest there to make that really viable. And I was literally in a local surf shop, the shop that I had been renting boards from, and where I bought my board and I stored my board with them. So they became friends. I'm kind of the only two of the only people I really knew yet. And I was in the shop just randomly looking around, talking to the owners. I said, "This shop is so cool. Has it ever been in a commercial or anything?" And they said, "No, why? Can you get us one?" And that is how Rock Locations launched. Like,
I
literally.
love that. And you're like, okay, boom, that's it then.
That was it. I looked around the store just because I thought it was so adorable, fun. I said, "All right, guys, goodbye. I have a lot of work to do." I bolted out of the store, like literally. And I started to go up and down the avenue to businesses. I didn't know homeowners yet because I was really new here. And I just started to run into shops and boutiques and bars and stores, and I just threw this idea at them. If I could launch a business where I could bring production into your location, I don't know where it's going to go. There's no guarantee. There's no risk. It's not going to cost you anything. I just take a fee from that budget. Would you be interested? They all said, "Sign me up." Where do I sign? Where do I sign? So I knew no one said no. No one. And in a beach town, it's busy from May to September, October, nonstop, and then it really dies out. It's hard for these businesses to stay alive. So if there's any other indication of income, and I'll just finish this question in a second. I called the local newspaper. We have 2 small papers. I said, "I think I'm going to launch a business. Would you be interested in this story?" One of them called back and said, "Are you free tomorrow?" They interviewed me the next day.
Mark, get in the press right away so people know about you.
I didn't even know what I was doing. I was sort of making a lot of it up, what I wanted to do, basically. This was the plan. And within a week, the phone didn't stop ringing from homeowners. I've always wanted my house in a commercial. How do you get your house into a movie, all of a sudden, people were calling. They've always had been interested, but didn't know where to go. So I knew I had found a niche.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what it is too, Claudia, if I can interrupt for just a moment.
Of course, please.
These business owners, right? They know nothing about this. They don't have time. They don't have the staff. Exactly. So I can totally see people saying, "Sign me up." Because, this is something they just want to give to another expert where they don't have to even think about it, right? And you realize that there was a need for that.
Totally. I mean, with a business, you might disrupt business. So I've had to learn what are their quietest days, what are their quietest hours. It might interrupt, especially if it's busy season. They may need more because of loss of business, so the budget has to be higher. It's a little more complicated than a homeowner who said, "All right, I'm just going to be down at the cafe if you need me," and they kind of walk out the door.
Yes, I could see that. Yeah.
So it's a little different. So I've learned so many things in 10 years. I've just hit 10 years. So that's how the business launched.
So did we.
Oh,
I can't believe we're on the same.
Oh,
Our
wow.
10th was May 1st of this year, technically, but we've been celebrating all year.
Yeah, I think I was February was 10.
That's a huge milestone. Congratulations.
Thank you. I didn't know where this was going to go or if it was going to go, and I'm sure you had some of those same feelings.
Yes, absolutely. So let me ask you this. There is that off season. If you know you're going to have a contract with someone, do you do any prep work in the off season when it's not so busy in terms of photographing and those kinds of things before you do the nit and gritty and launch? Have you been working with timing in that sort of way at all?
Yeah, yes. My slowest seasons are basically holidays, Thanksgiving, December. Yep. Into March, the phone starts to ring in April. So that's when I'm adding new locations. I might have to take off some locations that are just not workable for whatever reason. I rarely do that, but businesses close, so I have to remove them. I might try to find some new photographers to work with. If I see a location really needs better photos, I work on consignment with photographers. So they shoot for me and then they get a piece of it if that location books. So I do some of that sort of scouting with them. And then I do some more marketing. I kind of really push myself on LinkedIn or Instagram, or I do a monthly newsletter, of course. So it's a real kind of push. I actually went away this year for the first time for a month, and I've never done that. And it was
I
amazing.
know, it's so hard.
It was a horrible winter, but as a business owner, I did it. I went away for a month. And I worked remotely. Every morning was work, and every afternoon I was, tourist. And it worked. Like I didn't have to be there. I had somebody on the ground physically if I needed her. She was available actually for one job. So I've met people now who can help me out. But that's the time to sort of refresh.
I was going to say that you took that specific word right out of me, because a big part of what we've done over the years is talk about work-life balance and finding time for self-care, recharge, refresh, because you're so in the weeds like all of the time when you're a business owner and on that sort of springboard and that, squirrel, what do they call it? Wheel or whatever.
The wheel, right.
And
right.
yeah. And it's, it's hard to get off of that. You're afraid to get off of it sometimes.
Yeah,
right?
I was afraid to leave. I mean, I left for a day trip or a weekend, but I was actually afraid, and it worked. I went somewhere there was only an hour time difference, so I could still make calls easily.
Oh, that's smart.
I didn't want to go overseas, and I did have to make some calls. And I actually I was in Mexico City, and somebody found me there in production and knew I was coming. So I've taken on 3 studios in Mexico City to wrap. So
I saw that in social media, Claudia.
That was really
Congratulations
exciting.
on that, too. Wow.
Yeah, that's exciting. I mean, who knows? But why not? And I loved the city so much.
Yes, absolutely. So and it's good to get out there and talk, talk about your business to people who know nothing about it, right? When you're in your place and you're in it, you're not doing that as much, right? So when you go somewhere, you start rethinking about, who am I to the business? I'm the face of the business. I need to talk about it again. When I first launched, when you first launched, you were doing that all the time, but then you get so busy with things.
Right, of course.
As, you become a more important part of the community and you're more busy. I think there's that too when you get yourself out of your bubble.
Yeah, you're right. It was good to step away and meet people there and tell them who I am and what I was doing. And I'd be sitting in a cafe every morning. I found my spot, which I loved. Great. And it was on my computer. Important. I got into conversations because they were curious about my work, and I had business cards, and I would say if something comes to mind, keep me in mind. So you never know. It was time to sort of open the door a little wider and step away and not feel and know this is still going to happen. And maybe I would have lost a job by being away for a month, but I had to take that chance.
Yeah. So for people that don't know a lot about your industry, I just heard you use the term scout. And I remember when I first met you, I was one of those people who wasn't sure about, I had heard location scout, folks that go out and find locations for, say, film and stuff like that. But what you do is, I think, more broad. You do more things as a representative, right? And I'm just wondering if there may be other people out there that are not sure about that as I was before I met you. So if you want to talk a little bit about the difference there.
Sure. I often get called that I'm a scout, and I'm really not a scout. So a location scout is hired by a film or a TV show or a music video. Hey, we need a white modern kitchen in this scene. We need a yoga studio for this scene. So they hire a location scout who keeps a huge inventory of places. They kind of know the area they have to stick to. Does it have to be in the city? Can they go to Jersey? How far out of the area can they go? They start to scout, look, literally physically look for those locations.
Right.
And they call me. So they'll call me and go, hey, Claudia, do you rep any yoga studios? Do you rep any white
So there is
kitchens?
A little cross-pollination there.
A lot of cross-pollination.
Okay.
And they've been great for me. I have a list of 10 scouts who I really lean on or ask questions or vice versa. If I use the term I went out to scout, I'm just going to look for some new locations that I want to rep, so somebody may call me, can you rep my house? I'll come over and scout it. Let me take a look. Let me take some photos. It's not for a job. I'm not scouting for a job. So the scouts contact me. And we work together.
That makes total sense. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, because I heard you say a few things about this, but I wanted to talk about 2 things, emotions and challenges. And I want to start with emotions because I know that, there's trepidation, but there's excitement, right? There's fear, but there's also probably this like urge to like do the new thing. So
Hmm.
just from your personal perspective, what were some of the emotions you went through when you knew you were going to really make this leap and launch this company?
Hmm. Uh, you said a lot of the words that I wrote down because you sent me those questions the other day, and I wrote a huge mix of excitement plus fear. I mean,
Yeah.
that was like the heading. I was so excited, A, to have found something. Everyone I mentioned it to, family and friends, loved the idea. I got no negative feedback. Like, really? Are you sure? Why? Everything was positive. Every owner was interested. I didn't get any home or business owners saying no. I mean, the newspaper said yes right away. I had so many yeses. So I was so excited. Like, this is going to
Okay.
go somewhere. But did I know how to do this? Did I know the steps to take? I had to learn about insurance and security deposits and budgets and contracts. There was such a steep learning curve. And I'm not 25 years old, you know, we've been
Yeah.
around for a while. How much time did I have really to learn this and to make it work? I'm not going to take
Yes.
5 years to learn it. I got to like learn it fast and make it work. And what's happened is I made mistakes in the beginning, and each time I make a mistake, I make a note of that to make it better the next time, make it better the next time. So those are fewer and far between. So there was a great amount of fear. And also, people assumed either I was a location scout or somehow I knew about locations. I was making some notes. I knew nothing about locations, except I did realize as an actor in LA, I was
Mhm.
often called to location. So I did a commercial in a shopping mall, and I did a commercial up a country road 2 hours north of LA, and I did a TV show at a courthouse. You know, so I was called to locations, or I was on a stage, like a studio stage, a lot of those for TV. But that's all. You get your call time, you get hair and makeup, and you're in the location. I didn't ever even think about where I was. They just told me where I had to
That's
go.
right.
So I knew really nothing about it. So I leaned on a lot of mentors with these fears. I have a colleague who does a lot of New Jersey locations. I have another one who does a lot in Brooklyn, another one who does a lot upstate, another does the Hamptons. So there are other reps like me, just not in my area. And I really have reached on them. Like, what's the lowest amount I can offer? And they're like, how many hours? How many people? You know, they'll ask me a lot of questions. And slowly you start to put all those pieces together. So I reached on people. I did my own research. I did some webinars and some research during COVID lockdown. We had 4 months where there was no production was allowed.
Yeah.
So I did a lot of research during that time to even get
Good for
better
you.
and
You
to
used
learn
that
even
time
more.
well. Yeah.
Yeah, I did some interviews. I did a COVID compliance certification. I had to be certified to go back on set. And I'm still learning. You know, today I had to put a few fires out. I mentioned right before we started, and I think we're good. I rep a few sailboats and cars and pets and dogs. A huge, beautiful sailboat in Connecticut. It was booked for today for an indie film. Perfect. A lot of questions back and forth, a lot of safety issues. A boat is very different. There's a lot of stuff. There's going to be a child on board. Well, the weather just turned. And this morning at 7 a.m., they're postponing it till tomorrow. So that's good. We got it postponed, but then there has to be a cancellation fee. Now I've got the owner who had the boat ready at his time. So I had to scramble, and I read in the contract that I had put a cancellation fee. I wasn't even sure if I had. I did. So that was good. So
The
I'm getting
weather.
that.
Oh no.
Yeah,
Oh.
so the weather threw us today. But I put that fire out, and I think they'll be good for tomorrow. I had a few other things.
Tomorrow looks beautiful up here. I think
Good,
our
good.
whole general area, because I'm in Dutchess and I know you're down there, but I
Yeah.
think everywhere looks really good
Yeah, I
tomorrow.
think we're
So,
good for tomorrow. So there's
yeah.
always challenges, you know, in a business, and it's just sort of take a deep breath, one day at a time. And there's so much joy. Like when I see a crew show up, the fear just goes away. The crew shows up. I brought them here.
Because
I
now
mean,
you're in your wheelhouse. You're ready.
now, I mean, now everything should be resolved. Something
Yes.
could still come
Yeah.
up, like they forgot something or whatever, but that's always minor. We can resolve it. But when they show up, we're ready to go. They've already scouted the house or the business. They've already taken a ton of pictures and measurements, everything. They've asked the owners a million of questions, me a million questions, a lot of hand holding. And then they show up, and I was like, I did this. You know, I brought these people to this location. I also rep outside of Rockaways. Yesterday I was in Brooklyn, and I met a team there. They scouted it, and they've just booked it. And the shoot is tomorrow, so it's a really fast turnaround.
I know you're a busy lady. That I've learned about you as we've gotten to know one another. I heard you say things about networking, and I just wanted to just for a moment say I also used that big time. Because I had worked in a lot of different areas of my industry, but I never ran a magazine. And so I'm going back to publishers who I knew, and owners of magazines. And I actually didn't, and I want to ask you if you felt this way too. I actually didn't even realize till I had to start going to folks and using people I knew through my long 30 plus freelance career, how to do things. And I was like, wow, I really have this fabulous network of people to go to about this. And I had my go-tos too. So I'm sure you feel like you continue to network, right? And you're talking about the scouts that you use and these different things. I think that's such a big part of owning your own business, using your networks for help when something comes up you don't know about, to help you spread the word, to just be a cheerleader for you at times and things like that, to look at what they're doing that worked for them and was a success for them. Do you agree with that?
Totally agree. I mean, that's huge. You made me think of my work as a casting director, which I did for about 6 years. Casting is you're finding the right people for those roles. So you're connecting those actors to these parts, helping the producer, helping the director. And I loved that work. I just had to get out of do something more stable for me at that point in my life.
But you were gaining those
But
skills.
I was making those connections. And wait, I know an actor would be good for that. I just saw them in a play last week. Let me call them. And I love those wheels turning. So that was really important to me. Networking in publishing industry, I thought would be a little more seamless, but because most of my colleagues either lost their jobs or went on to do something else. One is a yoga teacher, one is a social worker now, which is great.
The industry was turned on its head. My industry.
I didn't have the strongest source pool that I thought I would have from being in publishing so long. I had a few, and those led me to others, and then you start to network with their network.
Yes, that's right. It's all interconnected.
Yeah. I think every job I've ever gotten has been, as an actor, you still have to audition, but even some of those auditions I got because I knew the director or the casting director, and they called me. So, I think everything I've done has been like that. And I love that about my work and my business, the connections I make,
And you must feel really, really proud about how much you've learned. I wanted to talk a little bit about business challenges specifically, because in my particular case, I didn't know SEO, B2B, social media algorithms, like all of this stuff about business. Even if you feel I stayed in the same industry, you've kind of segued into all different parts. But there still was a big learning curve there. So I'm wondering if you want to talk about maybe specific business challenges you had when you first started the company.
Let me think about that. I think the biggest growth from when I started to now is that I finally was able to hire an attorney to look at the contracts that I wrote.
I hadn't even, I wasn't even thinking of that piece.
Yeah,
absolutely.
There's a lot of legal and liability issues. We're going on a sailboat tomorrow. We have a car at a gas station being hijacked. There's like liability issues. People can get hurt, damaged. So I use sort of online templates. I have an owner's agreement that they have to sign off, like how we're going to work together.
Okay.
And then I have a location contract for each job. And it's kind of a template, but then the dates, the times, the address, all those other little things change. And I basically wrote them looking at other people's, but for like the first 5 years, 6 years, I was like a little iffy, like something. I don't feel like I've crossed every T. I am not a lawyer. And what if? Knock wood.
I know.
But I was always had some anxiety at almost every job because of that. Like if something goes wrong, how liable am I,
Right.
So I created an LLC halfway through so that my company is liable, not me and my own personal investments and savings. So that was safe. My accountant advised me to do that. And then through a great organization called Freelancers Union, they connected me to attorneys for the arts. So there's a group of attorneys who offer their time for artists, at a nominal fee, because I was like, how much are you going to pay for an attorney? They were amazing. So I got connected to an attorney and I said, I need you to do two things: read my owner's agreement, read my location contract. And he, with a red pen, this, and that 1 or 2 page contract is now like a 6 page contract. He's like, Claudia, you're okay, but this isn't good enough. Let's really make you safe. And he did. And I feel so much better now when they sign off. Things could still come up. The weather can change, or somebody's not happy with something out of my control. But legally, I don't feel any longer like that I could be liable. So that was a huge thing. Even if I had to spend the money, I was ready. I was like saving my pennies. But then I found this organization that's been really awesome.
That's wonderful.
That's probably been the biggest.
And networking again. See,
that was through networking.
Yeah.
And he's always available for a quick call. I had an issue recently at a location. I won't go into the details, but there was a little bit of a hot water with the producer and the owner. And the owner called me. It was some verbal hot water, which I had never experienced before. And I was like, really? And I knew the client. But when the story was explained, I said, oh, I see. So I actually called my attorney on that. And I said, what if that owner had like kicked him out? He was angry. Like, am I liable? You were going to put something in your contract about that.
Right.
Like if there's still time left.
Really, the lawyers know the nitty gritty of all of that kind of thing. They've seen everything, right?
Right. So that I realized, okay, I can't predict every scenario. Like that scenario has never happened to me, or where they were like ill will between an owner, and it was a crazy story. But I thought, can I protect myself? Yeah, let's get a line in for you on that. So that's probably been the biggest business learning curve. In terms of finances, I've had to learn my minimum rate is no longer, there is no that cheap. Is just over. It's way too much work for me, hours and hours and hours, and the owner. So that's almost doubled a minimum rate. And then I go from there. And there's a lot of compromise. I often get calls. Can you reduce that? How much is that? Can you do a little bit better? And I try.
And that's good. And I'm sure that you garner client satisfaction and then have those folks telling other people because you were at least willing to be flexible and listen to their story and what you could try to do for them. That's great.
Right.
I know there's people, though, listening, Claudia, that they're maybe stuck in their job or they're just ready to retire, but they still are very youthful and want to do that thing that they always wanted to do, but they had to put, food on the table kind of thing. What's that piece of advice you want to give to those folks for them to take the leap?
Well, because of my history where I've literally changed careers 4 times, all in the same industry, but it's really been 4 jumps. Of course, I'm going to advocate for that because I think it's made my life so interesting, challenging, but exciting and interesting. I have a ton of
diverse skills for you.
Diverse skills.
Exactly. That's very important.
But I mean, my advice, it's sort of like, don't leave a job without a job. So if you're at a job or work, you're like, oh, kind of so-so. It's not terrible. If it's toxic, I say you need to get out. And I had one toxic experience when I was in casting, and I lasted 3 months and I left. It was a bad fit with me and the owner. But if it's not toxic, stay there. Do your research, get your hobbies stronger, do some online courses, maybe talk to friends and take them out for coffee. That's what I did actually at one point. Go, how did you do what you do and how did you get there? And like learn about what other people are doing. You still have to pay the rent. You still have to keep food on the table, as you said, but maybe give yourself a time frame, 3, 6 months, a year. By a year, I really want to be doing X, Y, and Z, and see if you can make it work. Well, you still have a paycheck coming in, is usually
a little bit of an overlap. Then you're
unless you have huge savings or a partner that can kind of support you during that process. But I unless like day one, you want to be a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher, a policeman. You really want something that you need to get the training, the schooling for, and you want to stay. But if you're a little bit more like in flux, like I was with my work, probably yours as well, I like the journey. And I like all the people who I've met and
Me too.
exploring. Me too. You know, we know thousands of people now. And that's what's made my life rich,
Yes.
I think. So unless, you know, if it's toxic, get out and go bartend or go be a barista. No one should be in a toxic environment, I don't believe. But if it's okay, pay the bills and start to explore something else and find
Smart.
ways, you know, to do that. And we're so lucky with online, with
Yes.
all the classes you can take and the books you can read online. I didn't have
Absolutely.
that.
That's the really positive part about the online community, right? Yeah,
Yeah. I
I
mean,
agree.
when I was acting in LA and I had hit a wall, it was about 8 years in LA, and I was like, the parts aren't getting better, the roles aren't getting bigger, the agents are, this is over. But I wasn't sure what. And I literally called 3 or 4 friends whose work interested me. I wanted to stay in the industry. And I took them all out for a coffee just to chat, to hear what they're doing. And it was a family friend who was a very well-known, successful casting director. And she said, I just got a big feature film. You want to come in and intern for me? I was like, oh, yes. So there I was interning. And not only that, I was coming in every day. She's like, Claudia, I'm not paying you. You don't have to come every day. I said, I'm fascinated by this other side. Within 1 week, her assistant booked his own job as a casting director. She called me and she said, you're on payroll. You're my assistant on this
Oh,
feature film.
yay.
You know, I was like,
Put
oh,
yourself out there, right? Talk to people. Yes, absolutely. And then you'll find your way. Doors start opening, right?
yeah.
I wanted to give you a moment to talk a little bit more specifically about your business, Rock Locations. I love the name of
Okay.
it, by the way. I know it's
Okay,
Rock
thank you.
Location, all of that, but Rock Locations, that's a cool name.
Thank you.
So just anything that we didn't discuss during our topic discussions that you want to say about your business. And of course, listeners know that we'll have your link so that they can go to your website and learn more and all of that. But do you want to say anything else about the business that we didn't discuss?
Um, sure. I think when I think about my role, because I say I'm an agent for these home and business owners, but what the bottom line is of that, I have to walk a very fine line, and I've learned this the hard way and the easy way. I have to I want the creatives, the producers, the directors happy. They need to have a product at the end of the day that they're pleased with. It has to look good, the photos, the music videos. So I have to make sure that they're comfortable and they're happy. And yet on the other side, I have to make the owner happy. The owner needs to have their home or business well taken care of. They want it left as found. I mean, that's the expression we use. When you close the door, lock the door, that home should look exactly as you found it.
Yes, right.
I mean, a pillow can be out of place, and I don't care about that. But I've gotten some calls like, my couch is still on the porch. Why? You know, we get.
Yeah.
So I have to make both happy. And that sometimes is tricky. That's a challenge because
Yes.
the client is spending money, so they want to be well taken care of.
Right.
But the owner is not only really important to me because I love every location, and I don't just say that, I really do. But at the end of the day, I also live in the Rockaways where 80% of my owners live. So I run into people on the boardwalk, at the beach, at a bar, at a yoga class, at the gym. I literally run into my owners. I want them to be happy. I don't want them to feel angry, annoyed. So it's this funny line that I walk, and I love working with both sides. But that's been an interesting challenge. Most of the time, it's a good synergy and it's a good relationship. But sometimes there's a personality difference,
Yes.
or producers asking for things that I think are over and beyond not acceptable. If a job comes to me, a request, has too many red flags, I mean, I'm moving on. I don't accept everything. If there's real red flags, I can't. And some of my owners are a little more flexible with red flags than others, and I know who's who. Kind of know each one of my owners' personalities.
So your social prowess and your communication skills also that you were building through all of these other positions are helping you in those areas, I'm sure.
Totally. Yeah. Maybe I was a psychology major at college, so maybe being an actor and a psych major.
Yes,
those
for
two
sure.
worlds.
No, those kinds of things matter when you have to deal
Yeah.
with complicated communication issues. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Claudia, this has been so wonderful. I could actually spend another hour with you on
Oh,
here about this.
good.
Maybe we'll do some sort of follow-up in the future.
Sure.
But I have
Happy
to
to do
close,
that.
unfortunately. But you've been an absolute joy to have as a guest. Thank you so much for
Myrna.
joining me.
Thank you for inviting me. And it was really fun to talk about. And yes, I could continue talking about it
I know.
anytime you want. And I have a lot of fun stories, all the anecdotes, funny anecdotes, things that have happened. Those are really fun to share.
Oh, they are. They are. You're so right. That's good.
We can do that another time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll close as I always do by wishing all of our listeners and our readers good health, happiness, and continued inspiration. Thank you so much for joining us today.